Now, here is a topic that is a bit sad, but also a real look at how the business world works. CHRIS Pranger was the localization editor at Nintendo and would help to have games that were Japan only moved into the US market. That is until Nintendo fired him earlier this week. The cause of his termination was because of his statements on a podcast, where for the most part, all he did was defend Nintendo and how the company operates. The problem, though, is that most people have no earthly idea how Nintendo operates, and before this podcast, they would have been forgiven for thinking that the company runs off happiness and sunshine. And that's because, like many companies, Japanese or not, they like to keep a tight lip on how the company is ran. So, Mr. Pranger's seemingly normal comments were like a gold rush of knowledge to the Nintendo faithful, and as such, blogs and websites began reporting on it, taking excerpts from the podcast and posting quotes from their favorite parts. And while this was great for the curious cat, it had to be absolutely heart wrenching for Mr. Pranger, who already knows that he might have said a little too much, as his coworkers would come around and tell him that he'd been featured on this Nintendo site or this Nintendo blog. He was gaining attention very fast, and it wouldn't be long before the big suits at Nintendo caught wind of it. And that turned out to be true, because within a week of the podcast, he was fired. And to be honest, Nintendo had every right to fire him. Look, I have a job, and in my contract, it specifically states to not talk or share information about company secrets. And I promise you that that is the case for almost every Fortune 500 company. Now, as to what classifies as a company secret, well, that is up for debate. And it really is terrible that he lost his job over discussing things that, for the most part, everyone could have guessed. Like the reason that Nintendo doesn't localize more games to the US and Europe is because they don't think they'd make enough money from them to justify the project. Which is a shame because the last story, Xenoblade, and to a lesser extent Pandora's Tower, seem to have made enough money back to justify their release in the northern regions, but neither of them were breakaway hits. And Nintendo, like any other company, doesn't want to just break even. They want games that will sell millions of copies. Remember, everyone, that to shareholders of big companies, a small profit might as well be no profit at all. And I do hope that Nintendo fans appreciate this look inside one of gaming's most prestigious houses, because after the firing of Mr. Pranger, I'm sure people are going to be watching what they say for a while. But to be fair to Nintendo, this was probably not an easy decision for them to make, because Nintendo is well known for being a great company to work for. They treat employees fairly and are not known for firing workers just because a project is finished. This time, all that really happened was that an employee made a mistake and needed to take responsibility for it. Now, was firing him a bit harsh? Yes, perhaps it was. But that's just how it worked out this time. Now, if there is one thing that did hit me hard, though, it's Mr. Pranger's statement that he left on Facebook after he was fired, that went as follows. I look around my house and see images of my son and feel such intense shame and crippling sadness. I know that if I can't find a job, at least as good as this one, that I won't be able to provide for my family. I've lost them their health coverage and their security. I also know that I probably lost a good deal of my friends just because how hard it can be to stay in touch with someone when the convenience of proximity is lost. I'm so sorry to everyone. I failed you. You believed in me and supported me and trusted me. and I failed you. I failed me. Now, I myself am a person who has fucked up many times in the past, and I've been fired because of it, and guaranteed that I will fuck up many times in the future and be fired because of it. That's just how I am. But firing me only affects me. When I fuck up, I am only hurting myself because I only have myself. The difference here is that knowing that a small mistake that you made will end up hurting your small child and your wife that you love so much, that is a feeling that can break even the strongest of men. Anyway, I'm done. And remember, if you have time to listen, then I have time to share my opinion. You all take care.